The landing of the Marines at Da Nang in 1965 was a pivotal event in the early stages of the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. It marked the first deployment of American combat troops to South Vietnam, escalating U.S. military presence beyond just advisory and support roles. Here's a detailed summary of this event. The U.S. had been involved in Vietnam since the 1950s, providing support to the South Vietnamese government in its fight against the communist North Vietnam and its ally, the Viet Cong insurgency. By 1964, North Vietnam had increased its military efforts, and the South Vietnamese Army struggled to contain the insurgency. The Gulf of Tonkin incident in August 1964, in which North Vietnamese forces allegedly attacked U.S. Navy ships, gave President Lyndon B. Johnson the justification to increase U.S. military involvement. This led to the passing of the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, which granted Johnson the authority to use military force in Vietnam without a formal declaration of war. By early 1965, it was clear that the South Vietnamese government and military were losing ground. The U.S. sought to prevent the collapse of South Vietnam to communism and decided to intervene more directly. At the same time, the military base in Da Nang, a coastal city in central Vietnam, was strategically important due to its proximity to North Vietnam and the South China Sea. The U.S. had established an airbase there to support bombing campaigns, and it became crucial to protect this base from possible Viet Cong attacks. On March 8, 1965, 3,500 U.S. Marines from the 9th Marine Expeditionary Brigade landed at Red Beach, near Da Nang, becoming the first official combat troops to set foot in South Vietnam. The Marines were greeted by South Vietnamese military officials and civilians with little resistance, as the Viet Cong presence was not significant in the area at that moment. Their primary mission was to defend the airbase at Da Nang from enemy attacks, ensuring that American air operations could continue unimpeded. The Marines were equipped with a wide range of weaponry and support equipment. Helicopters, artillery, and other logistical support were brought ashore to prepare for a potentially long engagement. The arrival of combat troops marked a shift in the U.S. role in Vietnam, moving from an advisory mission to direct military action. The landing of Marines at Da Nang was only the beginning. Over the next few months, the U.S. escalated its military presence in Vietnam dramatically. By the end of 1965, over 200,000 American troops were stationed in the country. These troops began taking part in offensive operations, not just defensive ones, launching large-scale search and destroy missions against the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese forces. The goal was to weaken the communist forces and secure key areas of South Vietnam, but this approach led to increased American casualties and deepened U.S. involvement in the conflict. The landing at Da Nang is seen as a key moment in the escalation of the Vietnam War. It symbolized the U.S. commitment to preventing the spread of communism in Southeast Asia, in line with the domino theory, which posited that if one country in the region fell to communism, others would follow. However, it also marked the beginning of a prolonged and costly war for the U.S. one that would ultimately last until 1975, and end in the fall of Saigon and the unification of Vietnam under communist rule. The Vietnam War became deeply unpopular in the U.S. over time, and the decision to escalate involvement in 1965, starting with events like the landing at Da Nang, is often viewed as the beginning of a costly and controversial intervention that shaped American foreign policy and public opinion for decades.